Delicate subject. Chapter 43. Her only option for the short term was to stall bleeding. The tourniquet and Medigel had stopped it for the most part, but there was still some distracting dripping from either a very slow seep or just residual. The pain was intense, blinding when she moved, but the mission was not over yet. Without access to her Omnitool, she had no option of overdosing, which she was mindful about doing in circumstances like this now. She accepted what painkillers Paddock offered and did not ask for more. After treatment, pain was low enough to make it possible for her to sit still and not scream. With some effort, she still moved with breathing and couldn't stop breathing, so she had no strategy other than endurance. Once she was stabilized, Paddock went to go speak to the Krogan, and she left him to it. It was out of her hands. Out of her hand. She currently only had access to one. The injury was to the left arm. She had seen it, felt it, watched the first aid attempts. She had a few moments of leaping hope, of being among geniuses and having seen miracles, but in her gut, she knew it was a loss. Given a machete, she'd like to heat it up and chop her arm off above the elbow to have one searing burn rather than the feel of a dying arm, desperate tweaks and twinges of roiling pain along the topography of twisted and severed nerves. She breathed and dealt with pain. The situation beyond her arm was still volatile, and they were still trapped in a shuttlecraft with a Yogg. Garrus and Thane flanked her on the bench and held her up without appearing to do so. Javik was standing guard over the Yogg. Thankfully, they all knew her intentions, and the drilling of this mission had included door-to-door service. She would slowly bleed and lose her arm, and after a certain point she experienced no anxiety over that because salvage had never been possible. She knew the arm had been lost the moment the elbow wrenched and shattered. Thane and Garrus took her cue, and everyone kept their game face on. Javik was made of game face. She was in good company. She had painkillers. She was short an arm above the elbow, but that was in fact a small cost for something that could have easily ended up with them all dead or captured, with the Krogan people losing their only advocates and their best chance at fertility. Aim for audacious, miss at suicidal, land at Maimon. Acceptable. After a small adjustment and an offering from Thane of a swatch of fabric, Arushu only knows where he got it, but bless her pervy magician. She stopped dripping. She would get back to Karen, listen carefully and respectfully to her options, but she knew the answer. Reconstruction might be possible with Miranda, but that amount of time and rehab, she knew already she would opt for a high-tech replacement. Hell, she might be stronger than Garrus then. She would never feel venom through the fingertips of that hand again. The last time she had touched Thane with that hand had been the last time she'd been able to, and she had not known. She was always aware of possible loss, but specific and personal loss blindsided her in its fierce need to deny it could be true. She didn't close her eyes or lean back or to the side, and she stopped thinking about her arm except to endure the pain. They had a long way to go. She had no time for personal grief. Garrus and Thane spoke to her calmly, seemingly all business, except for unseen touches like Garrus making sure she had his scent, Thane easing venom into her body through her healthy hand. Whispered words of strength and endurance from both. Thane spoke, low, enough for only her to hear. Jane, I know you do not often succumb to venom, but perhaps you will if you choose to. In your blood right now, and in my voice, is the will that you experience no pain and fear no loss. It did help. Whether it was from her willing it to be true, wanting the pain to stop, or just hearing Thane's steadying voice, it made a difference. Garrus spent time distracting her to the best of his ability. Karim, of all the times I wanted to kiss you and take away your pain, now would be the time. I suggest we behave as though we're going to go speak to Regina, but instead, I make out with you. She smiled, warmed and reassured momentarily through the surging nausea and prickle of sweat. Thanks, but drug interactions, and possibly trying to high-five a Krogan female on my way back with a shattered arm because I'm way too happy. You like to make things difficult, don't you? You finally figured it out. The Krogan females had been effectively impressed and relayed their better-educated thanks after discussion with Paddock. Jane had learned a great deal about making an impression. Whether or not every Krogan was behind her, Rex and these 5 would be, and in theory they could and would sway Tuchanka. In a shuttlecraft occupied by warriors accustomed to pain and sacrifice, Jane was not about to let her arm keep her from being taken not only seriously, but profoundly. She didn't neglect it as she had her leg at the collector's, but she would not allow it to interfere, and she did her best to make it count for her in its dying moments. It was an hour and a half before Edie was able to bring the cruiser through the relay. Maybe 30 minutes more before Edie and Regina felt absolutely certain there would be no pursuit and that the shuttle was not at risk. They rendezvoused with the Normandy. The shuttle was transferred. Edie was going to pilot the cruiser to a safe spot that led away from Eurydice, and the Normandy would take a more direct route since she could do that stealthed. Security arrived to help Javik get the Yag to the brig. Edie was on electrocution and sleepy gas watch, because a Yaga could clearly do structural damage to attempted enclosure. Garrus and Thane made quiet suggestions of disposition of the members of the shuttle, and she had agreed, so all she had to do was walk off into the medbay. No drama, no carrying, no leaning. Despite repeated requests that had made her smile, no making out. She would walk. Paddock had assured Garrus in a private conversation that the Krogan females were healthy and not at any immediate medical risk. They could be housed as diplomats and not confined to the medbay, and Shepard would get first priority from the medical team. They would wait for work to be done at Eurydice. Paddock had agreed to that plan, adding, Morden would not want to be left out. Karen and Miranda had done their best to virtually examine the disposition of her arm through OmniTool photos and crude scanning tech. Jane got some blood replacements and some excellent painkillers. Morden and David had made their mark on effective pharmacy. She was examined and scanned. She wasn't in pain as they gave her the options she already thought she had. Her best bet for function was a cybernetic arm. There was too much instability, too many breaks, too much tissue and nerve damage, too much of the elbow shattered and torqued. An organic rebuild, regen, and rehab would take months, and the resultant arm would likely still be much weaker and prone to chronic pain and re-injury. She nodded after listening to her options and said, Okay, take it off. Miranda mentioned that if she wanted full tactile sensation, including absorption, and that meant the ability to feel and take in venom, which almost made her cry for the sentimental value alone, They should use the opportunity of her being under general anesthetic and the necessary recovery time to do some implants so her nervous system got used to them, and by the time her arm had healed, they could begin rehab immediately. There were risks: brain damage, anesthesia, blood loss. Yeah, most of these things she faced every day but did not have to consent to them. Miranda had some other implants and enhancements she had worked on replacing since Jane's abduction, ready to go, but had not had the opportunity to reimplant, and she felt now would be the time. Jane gave her a crooked smile and said, "Thank you. Whatever you think is best." They agreed that Karen would begin the surgery, and that would continue until they docked at Eurydice, and then Miranda would come on board to begin her leg of the reconstruction. It would likely take approximately 18 hours if all went well, shorter or longer if things went badly. That is how long it would take to wake up. Beyond that, she would be immobilized for days, if not weeks, while delicate neurological paths were formed and tested. Then the work of learning control of her new arm. Possible estimate of being better than she had been in 1 month. However, possible rejection, of course, and no guarantees, though Miranda felt she could give an estimate of 78% chance of success based on Jane's known physiology and well-known rejection profile. Jane told Garrus, "You're in charge for the near future. I promise I will be taking my ship back soon." Then she took in Garrus's expression, Thane's expression. Both of them were taking it harder than she was. She said, "Karen, Miranda, please keep me under until they've both been alerted to the fact that I'm going to wake up, and don't wake me up until they are standing next to me. Otherwise, they will not sleep, and they need sleep." Karen nodded solemnly. Nobody was going to argue with her for once. Garrus came forward, clasped her good hand, and pressed his crest to her forehead. She said, "You're just upset because I'm going to be stronger than you." "You're stronger than me now." He kissed her, and she felt the fine tremble of his mouth plates and the hand in hers. When he stepped aside, Thane took his place, and she said, "You're not allowed to watch the whole time. I'm in good hands. And I'll have a good hand. Eventually. It's okay. I won't wake up without you. Please get some rest. Take care of each other." Thane's hands went to her shoulders, his fingers spaced, his mouth to hers so gently, and his voice, "As you say, Sia." Shannara's voice. She didn't say anything else because she didn't trust her own voice. She smiled at them both, and then at Karen, then reclined, tears in eyes that could finally close and contain them. All her choices made. Mission accomplished. Garrus's voice slowly came into focus. She could not feel a thing, but she could hear. "Karim, everything went well. You can't move. They need to keep you paralyzed. Miranda did a lot of work in your arm and in the new implants. She says you'll be better than new. Better than the second time you were new. We just want you to know we're here. If you're dreaming, have good dreams. We love you. Right now you need to rest, to heal, and you can't feel any of it. Sia, do not worry for us. Garrus is caring for the Normandy, and I am caring for Garrus. She heard Garrus cough and then chuckle. Dream of peace and healing, Jane. We will be here when you wake. She became aware of someone holding her hand. Thane? She thought it was Thane. She said his name, but her voice was scratchy, her throat odd, and she couldn't see. It was Thane. He squeezed her hand. Jane, you are well. Your body is growing used to the new implants, and some involve your eyes. She thought, my eyes? What the hell? She did say, whatever you think is best, didn't she? What the hell did Miranda do? Do not speak. Squeeze my hand. Once for yes, twice for no. Are you in any pain? 2 squeezes. Good. It has been 4 days. Your recovery has been extraordinary. Nerve growth and regrowth accelerated under Miranda's supervision. She states she was ambitious, and you have been most cooperative in your response. It will take a few days longer, ideally, before you will be able to move. Your head and arm are restrained, and you will not have any sensation for long. Do you understand? 1 squeeze. Wishing there was a squeeze signal for what the fuck. Alas, no. I must ask a cognitive question, Jane. Squeeze the number that is the result of 2 plus 3. 5 squeezes. You are loved, Siha. 1 squeeze. She surfaced to consciousness more completely than previous times. The ability to feel came first, the sounds of the medbay, Garrus holding her hand. She felt for her other hand and then remembered, that she didn't have one. Each time she woke, she had to remember. She still dreamed of 2 arms, and she had not had nightmares. She credited Thane with repeated suggestions of dreaming well. Maybe the medication had helped. She remembered everything, felt sharp, not as fuzzy or blunted as she had for... how long now? Nobody spoke, so she tried to, squeezed Garrus's hand first, and then said his name. Karim, you're fine. You'll be able to move. You won't be able to see just yet. Miranda says it will be very blurry, but you should try to see. Are you in any pain? She checked. Aches mostly. Some fierce itching. Some pain, but nothing rising to need immediate attention if she could talk instead. Used to military assessment, she asked. About a 1 to 2 on the pain scale. Itching on the arm and head. A lot of muscle aches. You're still on milder painkillers, but no paralysis required. It's been 7 days. The Normandy is at Eurydice. The Krogan females are safely on the station, and Paddock and Morden are optimistic for the cure. Solarians are not making a peep officially about anything, but there are some contracts out on the whereabouts of Krogan females from interested parties. Some chatter about Blue Sun's agents being hunted. So, Archangel pulled it off, huh? He had some help. She opened her eyes, and everything was a multicolored blur. She could identify the blur that looked silver and blue and was where Garrus's voice had come from, but she couldn't focus. It wasn't just out of focus, it was out of focus in different directions, something inside her brain straining and her eyes watering at the sensation. She tried to blink and focus, but It didn't help. She asked, "What happened to my eyes?" "Can you see light? Color? Some shape?" "Yeah, but it's all... I can't seem to focus, and it's moving, or trying to. My eyes are trying to focus themselves in different directions." Garrus seemed to nod, or the blur did. "Your eyes are enhanced. You have separate focus apertures to multiple input and processing sites. Gonna take a little time for them to work properly. You need some training and some software and hardware adjustment ultimately, but I'm jealous. You now have built-in customizable heads-up display and analysis. Better than my visor." The laughter made her hold still to keep the dizziness and whirling to a minimum. "Miranda says to allow the implant to gather data. Don't strain to focus, just move your head. Face, voices, don't squint, blink when it feels natural. The implant should gather what it needs and begin to learn soon. For now, we'll just look blurry." "But sound, amazing. Are my ears enhanced too? I swear you sound better, but maybe that's just being gone for a while." "It is so good to hear your voice too. Yes, I do think that your hearing might be better. Miranda can explain it all, but I wanted to talk to you first. Here, let me give you a tour. Here are the major things to concern yourself with. You know the eyes and what to do. Miranda says in a few days you'll be able to access the customization functions after the implant has gathered enough data." He guided her hand to gently touch the stump of her left arm. "The site is clean and healing well. It might itch. Let them know if it gets unbearable. Don't scratch. There are electrodes and sensors healing well, but it's delicate and aligned, and you shouldn't touch it." He guided her hand to her scalp. Her hair was entirely gone, and not just in one spot. "Yup, hair is all gone. Miranda was very busy. She's happy, and might I say, even smug. If I've got it all, you've had strength upgrades, perception upgrades that go above and beyond your eyes, and it looks like she's been wanting to do these upgrades for a while. She had a long list of things to adjust and enhance. To hear her tell it, this was the most fortuitous injury she's encountered. She believes your new arm will have the capacity to win at arm wrestling with Rex, and you will also have better fine motor control. They had to reinforce the rest of your arm and strengthen your shoulder to compensate for potential grip strength so you don't injure your shoulder. Thane kept your hair in case you want a wig, but I told him you wouldn't. You're not as vain as he is." He concurred, but the offer is still open. "No, that's okay. It will grow back fast. I can jack it for a bit. Wigs itch." I should have put money on it, but he said that was crass. Oh well, moving on. She heard Thane say. It was indeed crass. Her eyes shifted, but did not focus, and there was a blur of green. He sounded so good. She was sure there was more to their voices that she hadn't heard before. It seemed there was nothing medical left to address for the moment. Garrus drew her hand to the side of his face and said, "And this is a bondmate, deeply grateful that you are back. Missed you like hell." He bent down and kissed her, gentle and chaste, crest to her forehead and nose to hers in a nudge. She told him, "I swear I hear more subvocals." I'll give you a tutorial later. For now, just imagine that what you're hearing means, "I love you." And then when we get back out into the fight, you can become familiar with the tones that mean I'm terrified. She smiled, blurry eyes producing tears as Thane stepped to the side of the bed next to Garrus. Garrus did not give way or let her hand go. Thane put his hand under the thin fabric of the medical gown, on the skin of her shoulder, fingers spaced, venom instant and powerful. A fingertip from his other hand traced over her head, through resurgent stubble, along lines she imagined where there had been incisions or scars, now healed from Metagel, but no doubt he'd watched and remembered every moment. Not only had he seen the inside of her head metaphorically, but now literally. It was odd to be so happy at the loss of a limb and not being able to see, but possibilities were alive. Paddock and Morden had so much work to do, but she had faith in them. She felt no despair over the loss of her arm. There was pain and work, but the strength of possibility flooded her with her men at her side, and their voices clearer and richer than they had ever been. Miranda and Karen provided more specifics. She would be able to customize her eyes. Say that twice. Customize her eyes with her Omni tool. Several modes to switch through as far as analysis, heads-up display, able to be activated by thought, controls, and eye movements. Her Omni tool would be installed with the new arm, both under construction by Morden, Miranda, Kasumi, and David at Eurydice. In approximately a week, the stump should be healed enough to attempt preliminary testing, though not fitting, which would wait until all adjustments were made and all healing was complete. Miranda had all faith that her brain would be able to adapt to the implants, all of which were based on models that had already worked with Jane's brain. For now, her job was to sit mostly still and keep her eyes open and tolerate the physical discomfort of healing and remodeling of her nervous system. Garrus was getting work done, but they were without an immediate forward mission. They had no active role in curing the genophage, and that would take some time. At Morden's request, Rex had brought himself and some other males, Grunt included, to provide samples. The time, however, would be weeks, not months. Morden and Paddock were in fact thrilled and encouraged. Preserving Malon's data had been a boon. Garrus's work right now was coordination with all the agencies setting up support, running separate missions, and he was not directly in charge of any of them, just making sure staff and ship needs were met, tweaking efficiency of the Normandy herself, and spending long hours visiting. Issues of risk and audacity aside, the outcome was sufficient for everyone to feel it had been a risk worth attempting, and the cost to her was acceptable. Had Thane lost his arm, she did not know if she could forgive herself. He would have treated it as nothing, just as she was right now. So they maintained bravery and accented possibilities rather than concrete losses, focused on potential gains rather than the knowledge that they could have all lost their lives or livelihoods, and that it had been very close. It had been too close. And they had known that going in, and they were all ready to gear up and do it again. "6 days after they allowed her consciousness, after her surgery, she woke to Thane's presence at her bedside. He spent nearly all of her waking hours with her, and was her constant companion. She kept a steady schedule of waking and sleeping, dictated by the medication she was taking, so Thane was always there when she woke. Her vision was only marginally clearer. It would still take a few days of gathering information before Miranda would attempt any programming. She was in the make no effort stage, so no scratching, no fidgeting, and meditation techniques did come in handy. She did not have to resort to counting, just practicing patience. Time went by slowly, and it always seemed as though the clocks had practically stopped. More days in bed, unable to get back to work or put strain on her brain. She just had to let it do its thing. Its thing was really boring. She appreciated all the efforts others were making on her behalf and was not an ingracious patient, just a bored one. Thane's hand squeezed hers as she started to wake, but there was no reason to open her eyes just yet. She wouldn't be able to see him. She'd gotten used to that. For now she listened to his voice, focused on the touch of his hands. A luxury she savored. His voice carried to her, sounding richer than it had before. She was getting used to that as well, small details of character. It was slightly louder than it had been, even when he was soft-spoken, so Miranda had turned up the volume in her brain and added contrast and range she had not been able to appreciate before. "Good morning, Jane." He and Garrus were always careful to ask, likely personal curiosity and medical request. "Are you in any pain?" "Good morning. No pain." She held back that she was itchy as always, but she didn't complain about that in a prevention sense, and she didn't scratch. Her attention was focused on the new input and the analysis allowed by her enhanced senses. "That is good. Your doctors are pleased by your progress, and so am I." She smiled. He made more declarative observations, hopeful no doubt that venom would influence her discomfort and her healing, and she thought it did. She only resisted his suggestions when they were counter to her instincts, and in this case she wanted everyone pleased by progress. He must have been holding her hand for a while before she woke. Her eyes reacted to the swirling influence of venom, distinct from other blurs, capricious and multicolored. She asked, "Will venom make my eyes think that hallucination is a natural state?" "Miranda believes it to be of benefit, that it provides your mind with stimuli to categorize. Stimuli that you will be experiencing for the rest of your life, so it is an appropriate exercise." More declarations. It warmed her, made her smile. Venom did help immensely, and Thane was able to ease her days. She had promised it to him, that he had the right to sit or stand by her when she was in a state like this. She occasionally felt the urge to tell him to go spend time with Garrus, to go exercise or care for himself. But she didn't. She remembered her promise. She felt slight pride in making progress in injury and convalescence. She was assured this was where he wanted to be. He had made it clear ahead of time, and all the time they had spent separate from each other in her prior recovery had underlined his right to be at her side. The loss of her hair really did not bother her or him, she thought, and he would find her beautiful because he found her beautiful, and that was a constant. He stroked her hand. "With your permission, I thought I would attempt a human manicure." Only half the work it might have been. "Of course, I would not attempt it otherwise." She considered the silly impracticalities of broken nails and nail maintenance and all the things she had no time for, and said, "You have my permission." Because it was him, and it made Thane sense. He squeezed her hand, his habitual physical sign of approval known to her bones. "Do you have a preference as to color?" She almost laughed at the absurdity of choosing a color she could not see. Immersed in her appreciation of the bizarre touches of Thane sense, perhaps if he could no longer influence her hair, he could influence her hand. She would consistently ruin her manicure if he attempted this as a habit. and he would patiently repair what her thoughtlessness wrought. She said, "Surprise me. I won't be able to see it." He bent and retrieved tools, began to work on her admittedly atrocious nails. As he bent to her hand, venom always in contact with her skin, he said, "Have faith, Jane. You will."